what we saw coming into that trade at the bottom edges? Why did it make a fortune eventually into that price, eventually going from 40.60s to 40.90s for $1,500? Why do these things happen in the first place? Well, the answer is, of course, because it's by construction. It's developed these ways, right? It's a constructed situation, this whole 1, 2, 3 into the bottom edge. Does everybody understand that? It's a construction. It has certain elements that we can all understand that eventually are evolving. So when we look at this, it's supposed to be as hard as possible. You get it? It's supposed to be hard. They're supposed to shake you off. That's the whole point about shakeouts. It's supposed to make it hard for you guys to stick around. So when we think about what these shakeouts are, this is what we ended up with. Okay? Now, as I said, forgive me, the graphics are just what they are. It was my poor attempt at trying to think about what these bottom edges are doing. So you can see the start of any of these positions, right? It's two brick walls. Okay? It's two brick walls. And what is it that's happening in the two brick walls? Well, you've got the offers and the bids coming in. And obviously inside the offers and the bids, you're obviously seeing the spoof, the starting point of the spoof. What happens next? Well, you can see that when the brick wall's finished, obviously at the top edge, when they finish building the brick wall, the buyers or the sellers, in the case of the bottom chart, the sellers are still selling into this brick wall, aren't they? They're punching and they're punching and they're punching with the intention of punching their way through the brick wall. As they punch their way through the brick wall, what happens? The guys that are building the brick wall pull away their liquidity and they run through. The sellers run through the hole in the wall, don't they? The sellers rush through the hole in the wall. They've used up a lot of energy to go through the hole in the wall, yeah? What they don't realize is there's two things now happening simultaneously. Two things now happening simultaneously. On the other side of the hole, the buyers are digging. On the other side of the wall, sorry, the buyers are digging a hole. Yeah? On the other side of the wall, the sellers are starting to get exhausted. They've used up an awful lot of their inventory trying to get through the wall in the first place, you understand? So they're starting to get exhausted. The sellers that were running really hard into the wall, they've punched their way through the wall. They've really thought that they've achieved something amazing. But what they don't realize is that there is a hole being built on the other side. What is that hole called? Frank? Gary? The hole is called an ice order. It's a hole, right? They don't see it. And what happens is that when they run through the wall, they've dug a hole, they cover the hole with grass, twigs, leaves, small branches, right? So that nobody sees the hole, nobody recognizes the hole, you understand? So they cover it. So when the exhausted sellers start running into that place, the exhausted sellers, straight away, they fall straight down the hole, don't they? Sellers fall straight down the hole. They're already massively exhausted, so they've got no way of being able to burrow their way out of the hole, can they? They can't climb their way out of this one, because they've used up all their ammunition trying to get through the wall. So they can't climb their way out of this one. So who's this guy here? Who's the guy with the binoculars? The guy with the binoculars is the guy that dug the hole. The ice order. Why has he got binoculars? Because he's looking to see if there's any fast runners still coming through that hole in the wall. You see that? He's looking to see if there's any of these fast runners still coming into that cell. And if there's no fast runners coming into the cell, what does this guy become? An iceberg rhino. So this guy becomes an iceberg rhino, doesn't he? He comes into this trade and he says, right, climbs out the hole, and it's all charges. It's all charging now forward, isn't it? It's about now taking that price, running with it back to the upside, and obviously that's it. They basically repair the hole behind them, they repair the wall behind them, and now they go buy side, right? They repair the hole, so they fill in the hole, they repair the wall, so they rebuild the wall behind them. That's called a refreshed order book. A refreshed order book. And obviously what happens? This is what happens here. So this is exactly what happened here. They built the wall, they punched through the wall, and a hole appeared. They filled in the hole, they took the market bid. The seller's still coming in, seller's still coming in. They do the same, 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 and then eventually, after hours and hours, the market goes bid, and obviously that's exactly how these things happen. So when you think about it, it really is like it's almost like a cartoon sketch, but when you think about them building a wall and then putting in the hole behind the wall and filling in that hole, because what happens when you build a wall? What happens to the sellers? Have you ever heard of that idea? Well, let me just give you an idea, a thought here. What happens to the sellers? So there's all these sellers, right? There's all these sellers up here. There's all these sellers coming in. There's all these sellers with different ideas. And in front of them, there's this wall. In front of them, there's a wall, right? Behind them, there's a hole. It's not a hole, that's a square. Behind them, there's a hole getting dug into this area here. Now, you might be saying, well, so what is this all about then? Well, obviously, this becomes invisible. So there's a cloak of invisibility over this one. So these sellers are all coming in, and what happens to the sellers? They all get focused on a single point, don't they? All of this selling gets focused. It's like funneling your opposition. If you're in the military, you'll know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about planning an ambush, right? Planning an ambush. You can't plan an ambush if the opposition is all spread out, can you? So the idea of planning an ambush is to be able to funnel the opposition into one single key reference point, correct? So obviously all of that selling becomes one single key reference point in here, and a big slice of cheese appears. Nope, an arrow appears. So it becomes concentrated right there. And as it becomes concentrated, they use up so much energy here that when they fall into that hole, there might be more sellers all pouring through here. So the guy has to have another quick look, just checking. Just checking. That's called a low volume test, right? So they're just checking to see what's above here. If nothing happens, what do? Well, they absorb, and then they build a new wall. They build a new wall, and they rush back through the attackers. And obviously that's exactly what you get when you get this type of idea of a price starting to move down towards a key reference price area. Price moves down to a key reference price area. We start to see them hitting the wall. They hit the wall, they hit the wall, they hit the wall, they hit the wall. They get through the wall, and then they get annihilated. So they refresh, they blast through the wall, they get annihilated into the ice order here. They rebuild the wall in here, and obviously they capture it and they go north out of this area. And that's exactly what you'd expect to see in this area, wouldn't you? Exactly what you'd have expected to see. So I know it's not the best graphic, guys. I know it's not my forte, but you get the basic idea, hopefully, from that. The process is actually pretty accurate in terms of the graphics. I'm sure we could ask Nessie to come up with something a little bit sexier than what I've got there, but you get the basic idea, hopefully, about pushing and punching through a wall, falling down a hole, climbing out the hole, checking to see if there's any more sellers coming in, and then charging away from that hole with an iceberg order and a refreshed order book piling into the trade behind it. Well, that's not bad, Theo. 1 out of 100's okay. I'll take that statistic any day of the week. 1 out of 100's okay. I'm happy with that. I'll go with that.